Hi, I'm Caley and welcome to Kapowski Reads and what is technically the 5th day of Vlogtober. However, full transparency, I am filming this one video early because I am doing a little collaboration with Beccie over at Bex Reads where we're sharing our dark book recommendations. What an absolute opportunity to share some of my favourite books that feel seasonally appropriate. When it comes to what I consider to be a dark book, for me, I'm thinking something creepy. I'm thinking something unnerving, disturbing, a book that leaves me feeling unsettled. I mean, if the book gives me nightmares, then join the club, but a book that really plays with my mind. A book that leaves me kind of haunted afterwards, and it will stick with me for weeks, months, some cases years to come. That's what I think of with a dark book. I have tried to include books that I haven't seen much of on Booktube, books that I feel need more love and books that I feel more people would love and enjoy like I have. And I've tried my best not to include books that I rave about all the time, but I've kind of failed a little because I do have, looking at my pile of books, I do have some books that I have mentioned before. I apologise, but I swear they fit the criteria. I'm going to go through my recommendations in the order in which they are on the stack of books that is on my bed. So first up is the book that I feel started my love of dark books that creep me out and leave me feeling really unsettled. It is After the Whole by Burt. This is my original copy from the 90s. When I had no business reading it, I was far too young to be reading this book. So it's very, very yellow, very nice and floppy, very well read, but well loved. There is a film adaptation of this book, which is called The Whole. It stars Thora Birch, Keira Knightley, that angry guy who's on Twitter, and Miss Honey, the actor who plays Miss Honey in the Matilda film. So all-star cast. It is an exceptional film, which I feel does the book justice. It's slightly different to the book, but it's still a really good adaptation. It's one of, is it one of my favourite films? I don't know, but it's a film I enjoy and I rewatch quite often. This book is about a group of 5 teenagers who really don't want to go on a school trip. Instead, they are encouraged by their friend Martin to embark on a social experiment, which involves them going into a cellar, which is part of their school. It is dark, no electricity, no windows, totally isolated. They are going to stay for 3 days. They're going to party. They bring a lot of alcohol and they just are like, yeah, let's just hang out, have a great time. It's only 3 days. What could go wrong? Well, what goes wrong is the 3rd day appears, Martin doesn't show up. They are locked in the cellar, in an isolated cellar. Nobody knows they're there apart from Martin, and they can't get out. This book is so claustrophobic and terrifying, and as a teenager when I read this, my high school had a bunch of abandoned cellars, which made it feel kind of, this could happen. This is what I think about books that are dark, is if it could happen, it makes it so much more terrifying. And so in this book, it's relatively short, these teenagers are trapped. Nobody knows they're there, and they react in ways that make sense to the characters. This book left me feeling unwell in a good way. It is very psychological, very fractured in storytelling, very jumpy, which I feel really reflects the characters and what they're going through. I absolutely adore this book. I have reread it a whole bunch of times and I'm hoping to reread it in October, and it is just a book that has stuck with me for about 25 years or so. So I don't think this is going anywhere. I think my love of this book is going to long remain. I highly recommend this, and I also highly recommend the film adaptation, but in my opinion, I kind of like the book a little bit more because you get a little bit more something that just there wasn't time to convey in the film, but both are excellent. Next up is a book that I saw a couple of people talking about, but not nearly enough people were talking about it. The people have to know. It is I Feed Her to the Beast and the Beast Is Me by Jamison Shea. This is about a dancer in Paris, a ballet dancer in Paris. And she is super talented, regardless of like taking everything away from everything. She is extremely talented. She deserves to be noticed for her skill, and she is being passed over time and time again. And so she finds herself in the catacombs in Paris. There's a river of blood, and she's like, I'll make a deal. I will make a deal. And I love a good sort of good for her story. This is a woman who felt like she had no other choice because she felt she was never going to be recognized for her own achievements. She was never going to get the accolades and the roles that she deserved. She was much better. She was out dancing so many other dancers, but she was just being passed over. And so she made this deal out of desperation, and then chaos ensues. Again, we have some claustrophobic elements with the catacombs, but in addition to that, there is demony goings on and toxic friendship as well, which is one of my favorite things in a book. And I was left like shocked by the ending of this book, and throughout I could not put it down. I wanted to know what was going to happen next. And I loved Laura, the main character in this book. She was just such a lovable character, and she was so hardworking. She was so determined and focused, and I couldn't help but respect her. And I know she made some choices, but at the same time I'm like, I can't blame you. I can't blame you for what you did. Maybe sometimes things went too far, but I get it. This is a YA book, but it is still quite dark, and it wasn't a bedtime book. It was a lights on book, but I highly recommend it. Kind of encaptured a bunch of my favorite things. So I love any story featuring ballet, and I love anything with like little demony deals, and I love chaos not in real life, in fiction, and this kind of had it all for me. Next up is Jawbone by Mónica Ojeda. This book was unhinged, but like in the best way. This book is about mainly two teenage besties, and one of them finds herself kidnapped and tied up in her teacher's home. And then we go down a little tale of why would Fernanda be kidnapped and basically held hostage by her teacher. And Fernanda and Annalise, super besties, no longer besties. What has happened? Why is this teacher involved? What is going on? We then go down a little rabbit hole into the tale of the friendship between Annalise and Fernanda, and it is toxic, and it is very chaotic. It is very unhealthy. It is very, sometimes when you don't realize something's wrong, you don't realize something's wrong, and you need an outside perspective to get there. But this friendship is not good. It is not good at all, and it is very unhealthy, and people are not 100% telling the truth, and people are getting hurt. The teacher is not a well lady, and this book just kept me I was very anxious. But I found it really difficult to put this book down. There were a few moments where it was quite visceral. I don't read a lot of gory books, but this had a few moments where I was a bit like, oh, not a book to read while eating my lunch. But I was hooked, and I wanted to know what was going to happen, and I wanted to know why the girls weren't friends anymore, why the teacher was involved, and what was happening with the teacher, because she was not okay. I feel this book needs a lot more love. It is a little bit gory at times, but it all kind of makes sense. It wasn't like overboard. Next is She Is a Haunting by Trang. Tran. This is a ghost story. This is a kind of haunted house tale set in Vietnam. Jade has gone to Vietnam to help her estranged father do up his house. He wants to start a sort of B&B, and she is only going so that he will pay for her university. Otherwise, she didn't want to go there. But when she is there, strange things start happening, and she sees a ghost of a young woman, and very strange things start happening in this house. We have a wonderfully glorious ghosty story. There's also a little bit of romance, not with the ghost. This book was really just creepy and tense, and I love a wee ghosty story, but I also love a story where people are hiding things and you don't know if they're hiding things because they can't be trusted, or if they're hiding things for other reasons that people might hide things. But I really enjoyed trying to work out who Jade could trust and who she couldn't, and the story behind the woman who was haunting this house. I would honestly just read an entire book that gave me like an epilogue. I would read so much more of this book. It was a complete novel and I felt fulfilled, but I would happily read a whole bunch more so that I could get just more of this book. I really enjoyed it, and it was really, really creepy. And again, none of these are bedtime books. These are all daylight books. If you're a scaredy cat like me, if you're brave, then sure, read this at nighttime. Good for you. I will not be doing that. I think this is one of my favourite kind of ghosty stories that I have read in recent years. Next, I have a short story collection, Things We Say in the Dark by Kirsty Logan. If you haven't read anything by Kirsty Logan, I highly recommend, but do not be tricked, because most of the books I've read by this author are whimsical and just gloriously light and comforting. Like, there's moments of darkness, but they're overall leaving you feeling like you've had a little bit of a hug. Not the case with this. This is a short story collection where every story kind of looks into women's fears, and I found this to be I felt very vulnerable reading this collection. I felt very anxious. I felt very vulnerable reading this book, and I felt a little bit exposed because some of the fears in this I find very relatable, but this collection is just excellent. It's a very short book, but it very much packs a punch, and it just leaves you feeling like you maybe need a Horlicks and a hug afterwards. All the White Spaces by Ali Wilkes. This book is about Jonathan, who stows away on an Antarctic expedition shortly after World War I. He is feeling lost like so many other people, and he just needed to go. He wants to live as his true self, and the only way that he feels he can do that is to leave and live among the men folk on the expedition. Unfortunately, the expedition doesn't go quite as planned, and they are lost in the Antarctic. They are lost in a place that doesn't appear to be on maps. The surrounding the environment is very unwelcoming, and these men are just stranded, and it feels like they're not alone in this vast landscape. Something is there, and something is very kind of hostile towards them being there. So we have like this sort of tale of survival against the elements, against all the odds. And in addition to all of that, polar night is on the way. And I'd never heard of polar night before, but basically it's the aurora borealis, but pretty much constantly. So you are in this kind of snowy wilderness with these dazzling lights above you. How could you stay okay in your head? You must have a very strong head if you could. I was left feeling very uneasy by the being lost, like being stuck in the Antarctic. Who's going to come and save you in the Antarctic? It's 1918. People are doing other things. And in addition to that, we've got Jonathan, who has this massive secret that they are trying to keep. We have people who are not okay at being stranded in a very isolated location. Of course they're not okay. Why would you be okay? And again, chaos ensues. I thought this book was spectacular and I had a fantastic time with it, but I just felt so just tense. I just needed to know if people were going to be okay. And this book, I just kept turning the pages being like, please, maybe a helicopter appears. Maybe Santa will appear somehow. I needed something to keep me going. But it was absolutely spectacular. I had a fantastic time with it, and I was right to go out of my comfort zone on this occasion. On to the hardbacks. Home by Cailean Steed. This is a dual narrative book about a young woman called Zoe who has escaped a cult called the Hand of God. She has gone on to try and live a normal life, but she finds herself drawn back into the cult because her sister, who also escaped, has returned and she is in danger. So Zoe goes back to this cult which traumatized her as a child, and she's trying to save her sister, but she's also finding herself reliving a lot of memories that she had lost. And this book alternated between current day with Zoe having returned to this cult, to this environment that was just so horrific for her, and it alternates between then and the past when she was a small child who was not treated well at all, and she went through a lot of horrific things, and she was forced to do things that no. And I really enjoyed the way that the current day would give you little story, tell you what was going on, and then we would flip back to the past and be like, oh, this is explaining something a little bit more, and it would contradict a lot of what was happening in the other time period. And I really liked the sort of, I don't know if I can trust Zoe's memory, and I don't even know if Zoe knows that she can't trust her memory, but I'm sitting here going, wait, what? This book is amazing and it's so unnerving, and it's creepy culty vibes, and you can't help but root for the main character, or at least I felt I couldn't help but root for her. The end of this book absolutely broke me, and I was hoping there would maybe be a sequel, but I don't know if there will be. There doesn't need to be. It ends in a very, there's a full stop at the end of this. But I'm greedy, and if I love a book, I want more of it. Highly recommend. And my final recommendation is a book I have recommended before, and I will never shut up about how much I love this book. The Things We Do to Our Friends by Heather Darwent. This book, again, toxic friendship is happening. This book takes place mainly in Edinburgh and surrounds a group of university students. Our main character, Claire, is not who she appears to be. Claire is, on the surface, this very mild-mannered, very timid woman who finds herself drawn into this very effervescent group of friends, and we get to experience a little duality of what the friends are hearing Claire say and what is being said in Claire's mind, because Claire is, again, hiding things, and she's hiding her true self from her friends. I would say that this book was truly unhinged, and in the bestest kind of ways. Claire's new friends are very wealthy, and they draw Claire into their world, and their world kind of involves some crime. Some crime is going on, and Claire's brought in, and the group of friends is kind of led by Tabitha, who is, we've probably all known a Tabitha in our time. Very much feels that she's untouchable because of her affluence, and kind of thinks she can get away with everything, and she's not very pleasant. And Tabitha sort of feels like Claire should fear her. But as the reader, you're going, no, I can see what Claire's thinking. Tabitha, you're in danger. Don't be thinking that you are the terrifying one. No, you don't know what Claire's thinking. This book was utterly chaotic and absolutely exquisite. I will not stop recommending this book. I adore it. In addition to it being a very dark tale of toxic friendship with a very swift escalation into chaos, this book fully captures like the autumnal dreariness of Scotland. It's so grey, it's so rainy. I just thought that gave the book a little something extra and I absolutely loved it. But these are my recommendations. I was supposed to give 5, well it was 5 or more, and I gave 8 because I couldn't narrow it down any further than 8. These are my 8 recommendations for dark reads. All of these books kind of disturbed me in some way or other, but I would consider all of these books to be favourites. So there's that. I'd like to know if you have any dark book recommendations. If so, please let me know in the comments. I will also link in the description all of the other people who are working on this collab so that you can, if you're looking for dark book recommendations, you can get some more. I'm going to be watching their videos too. I'm so excited to see what books everybody's come up with. Thank you so much for watching.